Welcome to Sports Talk with R&J. I am Steve Risser, along here with Justin D'Onofrio. But before we get into Week 17, we got to recap what happened last night. And the Niners beat the Colts 48-27. Just an outstanding performance by Brock Purdy, throwing 5 touchdown passes. Philip Rivers surprisingly had a really good game last night, though. 23 for 35 for 277. And he really didn't get any help from his running game. He got sacked a couple of times. He got no help from his defense at all. So really, he didn't get help from really much around him. And he still played a pretty good game, but it wasn't enough because of how good that Niners offense was. Just Brock Purdy was excellent. Christian McCaffrey was great. The Colts could not cover George Kittle. So dominant performance by the Niners, and they're putting themselves in good position to have a chance to get the number 1 seed. So Justin, what were your thoughts from last night?
Yeah, my thoughts last night is Philip Rivers looked pretty good for a 45-year-old quarterback that hasn't played in 5 years, or make a second start in 5 years. And I liked how the first play of the game they took that shot deep, just to try to get let the defense know and keep them to kind of look to have that kind of in your arsenal, help kind of defense try to take away. Because we obviously know the Armstrong kids is there as well as it used to be. So, but yeah, like the Niners offense last night was pretty unstoppable. Brock Purdy was awesome. George Kittle had a monster night as well, and Niners converted 14 points off the 2 turnovers, which was huge. But yeah, the Colts defense last night didn't really have any answers, and it's been a huge collapse for them. I know the injuries have not helped things, but they started out 7-1 here, and now
8-2 too.
Pretty much wrapped up.
And then when they traded for Sauce Gardner, they've been one because they're 1-5 since they traded for him because he can't get on the field.
Yeah, and that's you traded 2 first-round picks for him. That looked the time we thought that wasn't a great deal, but I think they knew they were going to try to go for it this year, and it's
now it's a complete disaster. Which Chris Ballard, I think he's on his way to getting. I haven't heard anything about Chris Ballard getting fired, but he should be on his way to getting fired for what's been going on there. The problem with the Colts is they keep putting a Band-Aid at the quarterback position. They never really solved it. Anthony Richardson was a bust. Yeah, they're pretty much they have 2 first-round picks for Sauce Gardner, and now they're going to be out of and they're more than likely going to be out of the playoffs.
Yeah. So Ballard's probably be out of a job. Steichen might be as well here, but yeah, it's unfortunate. And at least you got Gardner signed for the next couple of years. But yeah, Dolphins, you don't have the pick this year, and they keep going on a revolving door. Like, I know Rivers has looked decent. You can't go with Rivers next year, the starting quarterback.
No,
you can't go with
he hasn't played in like 5 years. I would be surprised if they lose to Jacksonville, they just sit him and play Riley Leonard the last game to see what they have.
Yeah, that's why I'm surprised. I know he's looked decent, but I'm surprised they haven't gone that route because Leonard is like Daniel Jones. Like, you don't really have to change your offense that much with Riley Leonard in there because he is a good runner. I think he's a better runner than he is a passer. So, yeah, I'm surprised they haven't figured that out yet, or they haven't gone that route either and just see what you got in them. I don't think you have a franchise quarterback, but you never know until you throw him out there. So, yeah, it's surprising. But, yeah, the Colts, it's been a disaster. It's unfortunate. It looked like they're going to be right there for one of the top teams in the AFC. But, yeah, it's all falling apart the last couple of weeks.
And going back to the Niners, what are their chances to win the NFC West? What are their chances to win the division? And I think they have a chance. I do think they have a chance. Now they got 2 tough games, but they're both at home. They got the Bears on Sunday, which we'll get to the Bears game on Sunday night, and then the next week they got the Seahawks at home. And that game, if they both win, the Seahawks and the Niners, that game is going to be for the NFC West title. So I think it's definitely possible, but it's going to be hard because they're still concerned about that. I think that offense is really good. They're still concerned about that defense, and rightfully so, because they don't have their 2 best players.
Yeah, they don't right now. And yeah, we just talked about it. When you let a 45-year-old kind of Philip Rivers do what he did last night, yeah, it's a pretty concerning sign. So without their top 2 guys on defense, that does really hurt because the Titans a couple weeks ago ran for 6 yards of carry. I know last night Jonathan Taylor didn't do a ton on the ground. I think mostly because they fell behind early on. But like even the Titans had a lot of success against them. So Yeah, it is. It's a little worrisome, but Shanahan's done a great job, and I don't think he's any coach of the year. I think it's probably gonna be Ben Johnson at this point, but he definitely deserves. You know, like I would not. You know, like that. He for all the injuries that his team's overcome, and for them to maybe end up here 13-4, win the NFC West. I think he should win coach of the year, but I think at this point it's pretty certain it's going to be Ben Johnson, maybe Mike Vrabel, but I think Ben Johnson get it, but Shanahan's done a really good job with this roster with managing all the injuries here down the stretch and still having a chance here to win NFC West.
Yeah, he definitely has. I know they've had a favorable schedule, but for them to be 11-4, losing, two top, Fred Warner is the best linebacker in the game, and Nick Bosa is a top 5 edge rusher in the game. So to lose those two guys and still be in position to win the division, it shows you why he's the top coach in the league. So this year is definitely showing you why Kyle Shanahan is a top coach in the league. And he's right up there with Liam Cohen, Mike Vrabel, and Ben Johnson for coach of the year.
Yeah, he absolutely is, and he deserves it because he's done a really good job with this roster this year with all the injuries. And again, the NFC West with the Rams and the Seahawks to be with them all year, and yeah, you're missing your two top guys on defense. So a lot of credit to him. I know solid too for the most part. The defense looked pretty good most of the year, but I know in the last 2 weeks withstanding, but I think Salah's done a good job with this defense as well for most of the year.
Yeah, I know they only have like 16 sacks on defense, but for losing the two guys they lost, I think he has done a really good job. I think he has done a solid job, and it's a reason why the Niners are in the position that they're in the position that they're in right now. So yeah, so Niners they have a chance to win this division, and they got a big one on Sunday. They won last night, and they got a big one on Sunday night as they take on the Bears, and they're taking on a Bears team who had a dramatic come from behind win against the Packers on Saturday. That was a crazy game on Saturday. Looked like they were going to lose. They got a field goal, and they got the onside kick. They tied the game, and then Caleb Williams brought them back to win it. So the Bears, they're playing really well. We talked about coach of the year. You got Kyle Shanahan against Ben Johnson here. I think this is going to be a good game, but I think it's going to come down to when these teams get in the red zone. I think the Niners are going to be able to convert in the red zone. I think the Bears are going to have a little bit of trouble. I think Caleb's going to see blitzes from Robert Saleh. Robert Saleh is going to put a game plan together to try to confuse Caleb Williams. And I do think Caleb makes that one mistake. I think Purdy makes less mistakes than Caleb, and I think that's the difference. That's why I got the Niners going to 12-4, Bears going to 11-5. I got the Niners going to 12-4 and keeping pace with the Seahawks and the Rams in the division and winning this game 28-23. But Justin, can Caleb and the Bears stay hot and clinch the NFC North?
No, I got the Niners here as well, 27-23. It's a short week for the Niners. I do worry about that, but look, Caleb Williams for the first 55 minutes of that game was not good. He played well down the stretch there, and overtime had a couple of nice throws there, but he was not great. And the Bears are the first team since 1970 to have like 6 comeback wins when scoring in like the final 2 minutes of regulation. Like the luck can't look, credit to them, but it's been a team that's found a lot fortunate to win some of these games, and sometimes that kind of luck goes against you. I'm not trying to take anything away from them. To get that win last week, even with Willis going in, I think it's a big win for the Bears. They forced 31 turnovers of the year, but I think Christian McCaffrey has a big game on the ground in this one. Bears. The Bears are giving up about 5 yards to carry on the year. So I do like the Niners. I do like Purdy to play well enough here, and I do like San Fran at home.
Yeah, I think San Fran does pull it out here. I think they pull it out at home. I think it'll be a competitive game, but yeah, I think the Niners, they pull this one out and they get closer to winning the division. And yeah, I think the Bears, yeah, they give them credit. They've turned things around with Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson. They've done a really good job turning it around, but they've won a lot of close games. This is going to be a tough one for them. So, yeah, I'm going to go Niners here on Sunday night to go to 12-4, Bears to go to 11-5. So the biggest league news from yesterday, though, was DK Metcalf being suspended for 2 games for going in the stands and getting into altercation with a fan. Completely justified suspension. Completely justified. Totally deserved. Now, I don't think it's going to hurt the Steelers. I mean, he'll appeal it. It'll probably get knocked down in 1 game. So I don't think this is going to end up hurting the Steelers at all because they're in good shape right now in the division. Because if you look at what's happening with the Ravens, they collapsed on Sunday night. Lamar Jackson is hurt. There's a good chance he doesn't play even on Sunday against the Saturday night. Against the Packers. So I think that the Steelers are still in good shape, even with DK suspended. But he completely deserved the suspension. You just cannot do what he did on Sunday.
Yeah, did you hear? I guess I was reading a story last night this is not the first time this individual's
Oh,
fans gone
really?
after DK.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, like even with Seattle, he's
Oh,
I
wow.
guess has gone at him.
Yep.
Now I don't think it's justified, but what he was saying, or he told somebody, this was another story I read last night, that he went after him, that the fan went after himself or went after DK personally and his mom. And if he did
Wow.
that, then I have no problems with DK. Then it's the gloves are off. If you go after his
Yeah.
family or himself, I don't have an issue. But it's a he said thing. So yeah.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, it's so depending on who's right, who's wrong in the situation. Yeah, like it's not great. You don't want another Malice in the Palace situation. It happens in Detroit.
Yeah.
But yeah, if it was just a little heckling or whatever, and it wasn't anything personal, then yeah, I think DK's out of line. I think the 2 game suspension is the right thing here.
Yeah, I think it's the right thing regardless. I think you should just ignore whatever fans say in the stands because no one knows who that fan is, but they know you have so much more to lose than any fan in the stands. So I think you should just be ignoring fans anyways. I think you should be ignoring fans anyways. I think he deserved to be suspended. He should not have been going up into the stand. Shouldn't have been doing that. Lucky he didn't get ejected from the game, but the league just can't enforce that. They can't enforce something like that. He's lucky he didn't get ejected from that game because that looked bad. When you saw it on TV, that looked really really bad. So it's unfortunate, and I think he's gonna get knocked down to one. I think he'll probably get knocked down to one. He'll probably get suspended this week. Maybe he'll be able to play the Week 18 game against the Ravens. But here's one thing I do know: if the Steelers make the playoffs, he's definitely on the field. They're not going to suspend him for
Oh
that.
yeah, yeah, they won't suspend him for the playoffs. So yeah, I completely agree with you with what you just said there about that.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no way he's suspended for the playoffs. And now for the game for the Steelers, they go to Cleveland and take on the Browns. And I'm going to pull an upset here. I think the Browns competed last week, and I think their without DK Metcalf, I think the Steeler offense is going to have problems. I think it is. I think they'll be able to contain Gainwell. I think the pass rush of Myles Garrett is going to get there, and I think it's going to be an upset here. I'm going to go with the upset. I'm going to go with the Browns to upset the Steelers in Pittsburgh. I got the Browns winning 20-17. But Justin, can the Steelers win the NFC North on Sunday? And even though they could win it, before they even take the field if the Ravens lose, but can they win the NFC North Sunday in Cleveland?
I think they do. I have 17-13. I wouldn't be shocked with the Browns if you're right here and the Browns knock them out because the Steelers have only won there once in like the last 9 times they've gone to Cleveland. So
Wow,
it's
wow.
been like a house of horrors for them up there. So I wouldn't be shocked if they knock them off here, but Rodgers and the offense seem like they figure some things out. I think DK's definitely a loss. But I think it's a low scoring game. I think Jalen Warren has a good game on the ground here. I just think now that you don't have Quayshawn Junkins out there too with that brutal injury he suffered last week, I don't know how much the Browns will be able to muster offensively here. And I think Rodgers just does enough here. The Steelers get enough pressure on Shedeur Sanders to force him to turn over to that the Steelers get out of this game with a win. But I think it's an ugly football game here in Cleveland.
Yeah, it could be a very ugly game, but yeah, do think but I think the Browns do pull the upset. I think they do. I think it's a rivalry game. No DK Metcalf. I think the Browns pull, and I know the Steelers have been playing well, but I think the Browns pull the upset on Sunday in Cleveland. We'll move on to a matchup on Saturday between the Packers and the Ravens. This is an interesting game between these two teams. The Ravens had a brutal loss last week. Both teams are coming off absolutely. I mean, the Packers had an even more brutal loss than the Ravens. Both these teams are coming off absolutely brutal losses the last week in Week 16. So, but for this game, the weird part about it is you don't even know what quarterback's playing. You really don't know who's going to be playing quarterback in this game. So this is a hard game to predict. But I think Lamar is going to be out. I don't know about Jordan. I don't think either quarterback plays. I think it's going to be you're going to see Willis against Tyler Huntley. It's going to be a low-scoring game. So I'm going to take the home team here and the team with the better defense, and I'm going to go with the Packers 23-16. I think that Jeff Hathaway confuses Tyler Huntley, they force the Packer defense forces a couple turnovers, and then the Packers offense. I think Malik Willis manages the game, and they end up pulling this one out. I got the Packers here 23-16. But Justin, can the Ravens keep their season alive at Lambeau Field on Saturday night?
I got the Packers here as well, 18-13. Yeah, I like Willis as a back. I know Huntley's not bad either, and he fits that system. I think Willis with LaFleur We saw some success last year with them. They did pretty well last week against the Bears. I know they didn't win the game, but I like Willis here. I trust him a little bit more than Huntley in this one. I think the Packers are able to run the football. I think both teams are going to try to establish that running game, but I do like the Packers here to establish that run game a bit better here. I trust their defense a little bit more than I do Baltimore's here. And again, Baltimore just continues to find ways to lose these football games. They're 3-6 this year at home, 0-3 at home in prime time this year. Like it's just been very uncharacteristic for the Ravens. I keep thinking that they're gonna come out of this funk that they've been all year, but we've seen 16 games of it, or 15 games of it, and it's not gonna happen. So I think the Packers are a better football team here. I think even without Jordan Love, they get the win at home.
And we saw it Sunday night. We saw their defense give up a 2-touchdown lead. Yeah, it's not. But even with a healthy Lamar, this just wasn't the same Raven team. Because even when Lamar was healthy, they were 1-3. They were 1-3 before he got hurt. So this has definitely not been the same Raven team, especially on the defensive side of the ball. They've really struggled to get pressure on the quarterback, as we saw at the end of the game on Sunday night. So and for the Packers, devastating loss, but still a very, very good chance to make the playoffs. Seeing what happened to the Lions on Sunday against the Steelers. The question really is the future of these two coaches. Say the Packers go one and done and the Ravens miss the playoffs. What are the future of these two coaches? I think they're both back. I think that Harbaugh. I don't think the Ravens are going to move up from Harbaugh. And if you look at the Packers with LaFleur, I think they're going to give him a year where Micah Parsons is healthy late in the season. That's what I think they are. But both these coaches have been knocked on the door, but just haven't been able to really been able to come through. Both these two teams. We've seen these teams pretty much consistently in the playoffs. The last 6-7 years, they just haven't been able to come through.
Yeah, they haven't. And Harbaugh. Like I think it is time to move on, but you think of it, you have to get a better candidate than Harbaugh. And on them, who would that be? Like, I don't know if the Ravens could get somebody better than Harbaugh. So I think that's why you have to stick with them. And with LaFleur, I've never been a biggest LaFleur fan. If they go one and done, I think they give him one more year. But yeah, if he doesn't get it done, in 2026, then I think he's definitely gonna move on. But yeah, I don't think he's necessarily in the hot seat right now, and I do think he'll get another year regardless how this year ends. But yeah, Harbaugh, I think that it's time for a new voice there. It just seems like things are getting stale, but I just don't. You don't want to just fire a coach and then bring on a worse guy, and I just don't know. Like I think Freeman's going to be an awesome NFL head coach, but it's an unknown. So
exactly,
it's tough to take that risk. So that's why I agree. I think both guys will be back next year.
Yeah, I think they both will be back. I think they will be back. And the Packers, they still have a great chance to get into the playoffs and get a rematch with the Bears. Now we'll and Jordan Love should be back for that, but it's going to be hard for them to win that game without Mike. Even though they played well defensively without Parsons for most of that game, it's going to still be hard for them to win that game without Parsons. And it looks like the Ravens are going to miss the playoffs because all the Steelers got it. If they lose the Packers, they're done, or if the Steelers beat the Browns, they're done. So it looks like the Ravens will miss the playoffs for the first time since the 2021 season. So we'll go ahead and we'll move on to some of the Christmas Day matchups, and we'll push the Cowboys and Commanders down later in this show because that game is meaningless. But we'll start with the Vikings and the Lions, and I think the Vikings will compete for in the first half. Brian Flores his defense will keep them in the game. We saw Brian Flores' defense into Jackson Dart last week. That was it started through for 33 yards against Brian Flores' defense. So I think they'll compete, but it's just not going to be enough. When you have Max Brosmer starting a game versus, Jared Goff and Amon St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs. Eventually, Jahmyr Gibbs, I think gets it done on the ground. And I got the Lions winning. I know it's a tough place to play. I know US Bank is a tough place to play. But I got the Lions winning this one. I got eliminated by double digits. I got the Lions winning here 27-17 over the Vikings. But, Justin, can your man from New Hampshire, Max Brosmer, pull off another victory for the Vikings and end the Lions season?
So I forgot to tell you this in the rundown before we talked. Now that it's definitely Broadmer, I am going to take the Lions like 20-13.
Oh, you are, yeah.
I thought maybe there's a chance McCarthy was going to play. That's why I don't think there's much of a chance of that. I think Broadmer. I think they're going to do what you mentioned they did kind of against the Giants last week. Where they're just going to, or what Jackson Dart did, and they're just going to try to just run the football, establish that, chew up possessions. do all that and just try to keep the Lions offense off the field here in this one. So I do think the Lions win a low scoring 20-13 game. Brosmer, I think he'll play better than he did in Seattle. That was just such a tough one. I know that pick six, the fourth and goal there was brutal, but I think he'll play a little bit better. He's somebody that does usually make very good decisions with the football. So maybe just sped up a little bit in that Seattle game. I think he plays okay, but I do think the Lions find a way here. But with the a lot of injuries, maybe this team's probably. I don't want to. With a Dan Campbell team, I don't want to say they're going to quit, but how much fight's really left? You're playing on Christmas. There's not much to play for. Like, do they really want to be there? I think that's kind of a question. I think it's question two in that Dallas Washington game. Who wants to be there?
Yeah, I know. But hey, Hector said Justin called an audible. Good choice.
Yeah.
He's right. He's right about that. Just Hector is definitely right about that. Nice to have Hector listen today. So yeah, but yeah, good choice. He says good choice, but yeah, I do think the Lions. It's a Dan Campbell coach team. They have motivation. I just can't see a Dan Campbell coach team losing this game. I really can't. I think the Lions do what they have to do today, and they do what they have to do on Christmas, and they get the win. I got the Lions here, 27-17. And really, this year though for the Lions though has proved how important coaching is because they've lost Ben Johnson as their offensive coordinator. Their offense hasn't been as good, especially on the offensive line. They've definitely not been as good on the offensive line. The interior of the line, even though they lost players there too. They lost Eitler, Ragnow retired. There's a reason they tried to get Ragnow to come out of retirement. So they try to do that, and then you look at the defensive side of the ball without Aaron Glenn. So the Lions are proving you why coaching really matters because they lost their two coordinators. They're going to go from getting the number one seed in the NFC to probably missing the playoffs.
Yeah, yeah, it's unfortunate because I think the Super Bowl window's closed on this group. I think last year was the year or 2 years ago when they blew that game to the
big
Niners.
lead against the Niners. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they blew their chance. Unfortunately, I just think team is getting a little bit older. I know Goff's up there too, but I know he's got a couple years left. But yeah, I think the two big coordinators, the coordinators have been, they've really missed those two guys this year, and I also the thing with like Dan Campbell's a great rah guy. I know he's taking over play calling. I like aggressive coaches, but like there's a point where it's like aggressive and just dumb and just outright dumb. And I think more times than not, sometimes he's just too. His aggressiveness comes back and bites them, and you saw it in that Niner game a couple years ago. They blew a 17-point lead. So I think he's done a great job in Detroit, help building that culture and turning it around. But like I've never been huge on him as in game coach. I just think he's just too aggressive, and it comes back to bite him.
It does. Yeah, it does. Yeah, the Philly game was ridiculous. We went for like on fourth down like five times.
Yeah.
The Philly game was ridiculous. And yeah, it looks like this team is going to miss the playoffs. They need a miracle. They need Green Bay to lose to Baltimore potentially without Lamar Jackson, and then Green Bay to lose to Minnesota with Max Prosper. So they need a miracle to make it to the playoffs. Sunday pretty much eliminated them, but there still is a chance. So the game still has meaning. But I think they win this, but I just don't see this team making it to the postseason. I think Green Bay is going to get that seventh spot in the NFC. So Lions they play on Christmas. Also, the number one seed in the AFC plays on Christmas as the Broncos take on a completely banged up Kansas City team. Who is the Chiefs? The Chiefs starter it looks like is it gonna be that guy from South Dakota State? Is he gonna start for the Chiefs this week? Because he came into the game last week.
I think
so. It's a mess. They don't have Gardner Minshew. They obviously don't have Patrick Mahomes. Now, I think Reed might scheme stuff up to keep them in the game early on, but eventually the second half, Denver's pass rush is going to take over. And I think Bo Nix is not going to have to come from behind in this game. He can manage it. And that's why I got Denver winning this by 2 scores. I got Denver 28-13 over the Chiefs. But Justin, can the Chiefs somehow pull off a huge upset? Who would have thought we'd be saying the Chiefs pulling off a huge upset? Could the Chiefs pull off a huge upset and spoil the Broncos' chances and hand the Broncos their second straight loss?
No, I'm with you here. I got the Broncos 24-10. The Chiefs did sign Shane Buchanan, the former SMU quarterback, as a backup this week.
Yeah.
So that's going to be their fourth string at this point. But yeah, I just don't think, I just don't think the Chiefs offense do much at all. It's supposed to be unseasonably warm in Kansas. It's supposed to be like 60 degrees, so which is be nice if we get that weather for Christmas. But yeah, I just I don't think the Chiefs offense do much. The Broncos defense last couple of weeks has not been great. I think this is a week where they get back on track. You're playing a third string quarterback. They get after him. I think this is the Broncos defense we've seen for most of the season. I think they do win here at Kansas City by a couple scores.
Yeah, I think they do too. I think the Broncos win this by a couple scores. I know the Broncos defense struggled this week, but this is kind of their get right game for the Broncos defense. They get right here, and then it sets up a big matchup with the Chargers. And speaking of the Chargers, they play on Saturday. They host the Texans on Saturday in a big game for both teams. The Chargers clinched a spot in the playoffs last night, virtue of Indy losing. Houston still has to win on Saturday to get into the playoffs. Now it's a very slim chance they're not going to get in, so they're probably going to end up getting in, but they have to beat they have to I think win one of these two games to get into the playoffs, which but and I think Indy has to beat. If Indy lose to Jacksonville, they're going to get in too. So there's a very good chance Houston will make the playoffs. And in this game, I think they win it. And I know Houston had a bad week last week. That was a bad week against the Raiders. They're only winning that game 23-21 to the Raiders. That was an off week. I think they come back this week. I think this is a bad matchup for the Chargers. I think they get pressure on Herbert, force a couple turnovers. I think there'll be a turnover from C.J. Stroud, but the difference in this game is going to be Houston's pass rush. I think Houston's pass rush will be the difference. That's why the Texans go out to L.A. and pull the upset. I got the Texans 23-20 over the Chargers. But Justin, can Herbert and the Chargers stay hot and keep pace with the Broncos in the AFC West?
No, I got Houston here as well, 2017. I think the Texans are a bit more healthier going in, and you mentioned the pass rush of Houston. I think that's gonna be a huge key because the Chargers have been most of the year out all year with their two top offensive tackles, and I think that's gonna make a difference in this one. Harbaugh's another guy. Should be with all the injuries that they've had too. He should be up there for Coach of the Year candidate as well. With all the injuries and they're still battling for the FC West here. Still could get an outside shot for the ones. I don't think it's a happen, but yeah, I just the Texans offense last week, they could never just pull away from Vegas, which is definitely a little bit concerning. And Genti had his best game on the ground last week, which is surprising. But I do think Houston's defense this week bounces back. I just think there's too many injuries up front for the Chargers, and the Texas pass rush is the difference.
All righty, now moving on to the team that leads the AFC South, and they were very impressive last week. Last week they were really, really impressive. Trevor Lawrence, his last 4 games, 14 touchdowns, total touchdowns, 0 interceptions, 0 interceptions. So he's playing at a high level. This is probably the best we've seen Trevor Lawrence play, even in the year they made the playoffs with Doug Peterson. I think this is the best we've seen Trevor Lawrence play. He's been really good these last 4 weeks for the Jags, and then they take on the Colts, who have lost 5 in a row. Phillip Rivers, he'll be back out there this week. And I think that the Jags do what they've done all year, contain the run game. I think they force a turnover or 2 from Phillip Rivers, and I think their offense continues to play well. Lawrence stays hot. I got the Jags here. I got the Jags sweeping the Colts 27-13. But Justin, can the Colts get revenge from what happened a couple weeks ago and hurt the Jags' chances to win the AFC South?
I think they keep it close by it. Jacksonville's well here, 26-21. You mentioned I don't think Jonathan Taylor's gonna be able to do a ton this week on the ground game. You mentioned, yeah, I'm with you. I think this is the best football we've seen Trevor Lawrence play, and ever since that Arizona game, where even after I was like, he's very similar to Jameis Winston, but I don't think Jameis Winston ever had a kind of run that he's been on here the last couple of weeks. So Lawrence looks comfortable. I think this is Trevor Lawrence we always thought we were going to see coming out of Clemson, and taking a couple of years, but I guess that shows what the right coaching can do for a quarterback. Yeah. And yeah, like Trevor Lawrence has looked really, really impressive, and this defense has played really good football too. I think Rivers does keep this offense in it here for a bit, but I do think Jacksonville does get an interception or 2. That's the difference of the game, and I got Jacksonville finishing off Indianapolis.
Yeah. I think Jacksonville finishes them off. I think they do. I think Indianapolis is completely falling apart. They've had to bring. I know, and Rivers has played decent. We said it earlier. Rivers has played decent, but when you have to bring back a guy who hasn't played in 5 years, you're in trouble. And I think this is the end. This is it. I think this will be the last game of Rivers' career, and it could be the end for Shane Steichen and Chris. We haven't heard anything about their jobs. At the beginning of the year, they were on the hot seat. Remember, At the beginning of the year, those two guys were probably the two guys who were completely on the hot seat. Those two. We really haven't heard anything from them the last really throughout the season because they were started 8-2. But if they lose 6 in a row and they're out of the playoff, I think you're gonna go back to hearing about Steichen and Ballard being on the hot seat. And I think this is gonna be it for them. I think if they finish 8-9, miss the playoffs, I think this is it for them.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it would be it because, yeah, I mentioned Ballard's been here a while. Shane's been here now 3 years, and yeah, they've missed the playoffs. Ballard has not been able to hit on a quarterback, and and he missed out on Richardson. That was a risk, and it didn't pan out. So, yeah, especially the way the year started, so promising. I know the injuries have not helped this team out, but yeah, the way that this team's kind of collapsed here. I think I had them for the year 8-9. When they're 8-2, I was like, man, I was way off on this team, but I might get the record actually right
Yeah,
here
exactly.
in the next couple weeks. So
I had like 7-8 wins for them too.
Yeah, and yeah, we both thought be very wrong on the team early on, but yeah, it was like we're gonna end up being right about the prediction wise. So yeah, I would think this is it. It's gonna be time to turn a corner because you need a quarterback, but obviously you don't have the first round pick. So I think I said a couple weeks ago, like, would they make the trade for Kyler Murray? Like, I don't know where else
they have to because there really is nowhere else to turn. There's no quarterbacks, no first round picks. Yeah, I think Kyler Murray would make sense there.
Yeah, I could see it. Unless want to get really wild, the Joe Burrow that a couple weeks ago when he wanted out, that was the sign of wanting out of Cincy. Could they?
Yeah.
Could they try to trade for him too? That would help.
That'd be interesting. That'd be interesting there. But yeah, I think it's over for the Colts. I think they lose to the Jags on Sunday. Now, getting to a big matchup in Buffalo. This was actually my Super Bowl pick before the season. Now I still got the Bills going, not the Eagles anymore. But the Eagles, who won the NFC East last Saturday, now take on the Bills, who are there's a good chance they won't win. They're in the playoffs, virtue of the Colts losing last night. But yeah, but there's a good chance the Bills won't win the AFCs this year. But for this game, I think it's close and competitive. I think it is. But I'm going to take the team with the better quarterback. I mean, Saquon, I think will have a good game, but not as good of a game as he did last week. I think Josh Allen will play well, throw a couple touchdowns. I think it comes down to the end with the ball in Jalen Hurts' hands, and Jalen Hurts not getting it done like he's done a lot of times this year against good teams. I think the Eagles will struggle again against another good team because I think James Cook has a pretty good game on the ground. I think they'll struggle again. And I got the Bills here. I got the Bills 24-20 over the Eagles. But Justin, can the Eagles continue to stay hot and stay hot and keep pushing towards defending their championship?
No, I got the Bills here as well, 23-20. I do think Josh Allen plays pretty well this week. Gets a good Eagles defense, and I think James Cook's gonna have a pretty good game on the ground here. And yeah, I know the Eagles, like even last week, their offense kind of clunky even against. I know they put up 28 or 29 against Washington, but it still wasn't like a great offensive performance from them, I thought. And I know you're playing a Bills defense that stinks, but I still don't think this Eagles offense is right. It's not going to get right before the end of the year. So I think Barkley's got a decent game on the ground, but I think through the year, they're going to continue to have their problems. And I think that's the difference. And I'm going to take Josh Allen to get the win and continue to stay in the hunt for the AFC East.
Yeah, I think it'll be a good game. And if you had to ask which one of these teams you have more faith in to make a run, even though the Bills will be on the road, I'm going to say the Bills, just because the Eagles they've been so uneven all season. Now they're still a good team, but they've just been so uneven all year. One game their offense plays well, one game their offense doesn't. So they've just been, and their defense isn't as good as it was last year. So if you're going to say which team has a better chance to make a run, I'm definitely saying the Bills.
Yeah, I'd have to say the Bills, even though I think the defense is what's gonna cost them the Super Bowl run here, or getting them to the Super Bowl. But yeah, because I think in the AFC you're not gonna have Lamar. You're more than likely gonna have Josh or Lamar Jackson. You're not gonna have Patrick Mahomes in there. You got a couple of teams that totally haven't. Because the Chiefs are dying, and Joe Burrow's not going to be in it either. So you got a bunch of teams that haven't really proved themselves that they can get there, like the Bills with these quarterbacks in the AFC right now. So yeah, I'd have to go with the Bills because, like, in the Eagles' sake, like Stafford's kind of done it. I know you got some new blood in there too with the Bears and Jordan Love and Packers, but like I just think the AFC is a little bit easier road than in the NFC as well.
Yeah, I think so too. I think so too. That's why I think the Bills have a better chance of making a run. But their chances to win the AFC are very slim, seeing who the Patriots got in their last two games. And speaking of the Patriots coming off a huge win on Sunday night, they will head to MetLife Stadium to take on the Jets. And I think the Jets have lost their last three games by three scores or more. They've lost the last three by I think it was three scores or more. They lost 30 34-10 to the Dolphins. 48-20 to the
48 to
Jags,
20.
and then 29-6 to the Saints. Even though they were in that game for most of the game, they lost 29-6 to the Saints. So to lose by 3 or 4 scores 3 games in a row shows you're not playing well at all. And I think it continues this week. Drake May continues his MVP season, has a big week, throws 3 or 4 touchdowns. They forced Brady Cook to turn the ball over a bunch of times. And I got the Pats here 31-13. And Justin, I assume you got the same. You got the Pats continuing to cruise right now.
Yeah, I do. I got the Pats 27-13 in this one. I think May should have a good game. That was a big gut check win for him on Sunday night, being down by double-digit scores there. I thought the game was pretty much over. Thanks, Harbaugh, for benching Derrick Henry there the last couple of possessions.
Oh, man. That was terrible. That was terrible.
I know they like to rotate him and Mitchell, but when your season on the line, you're paying Henry all that money.
You got to have Henry in the game. You got to have Derrick Henry in the game.
Yeah, you just have to, especially with the season on the line and everything. I was amazed he wasn't. Thankfully, as a Patriot fan, he wasn't in there. So I think May and company play well. They get off the usually really good first halves. They didn't totally last week, but I think they do this week. And the Jets still don't have an interception, and they got to try to pick off their Drake May or Josh Allen in the last 2 weeks.
There's a good chance they won't go the season with. There's a good chance they'll go the season without an interception. Yeah.
Yeah, which was the first team ever, which I guess isn't surprising. It's saying that there hasn't been like a tit ball that's gone to a corner or something. It's insane, but that's the most Jetsy thing ever. So hopefully May doesn't throw one this weekend. That'd be kind of funny to see teams go single season without an interception.
Yeah, that'd be funny. And you brought it up though about the Patriots gut check win last week. Proved to you why they were a Super Bowl contender, because it really the last 4 or 5 years post Brady. That's a lot. Most times since Brady left, that's a loss. Really, that game is a loss. Yeah. And this is the first time I can remember really post Brady where they came back from 10 points down to win a game. That's the first time I can remember. That's really?
Yeah. First one since the Falcons Super Bowl when they came back.
That's the first time. The first time they were down double digits in the fourth quarter and came back and won a game. So really, it was the first time post Brady that they came back. Because if this was the 2020 Patriots lost, 2021 Patriots, even though they were bad, they got the playoffs lost. 2022 Patriots absolutely a loss. 2023 Patriots lost, and then last year's Patriots lost. So things are changing, and that's the definition of a top quarterback. When you're down 2 scores in the fourth quarter in a big game, in a primetime game, you bring your team back to win. So that's why Drake May is an MVP candidate, and that's why he's clearly a top 10 quarterback and arguably a top 5 quarterback in the league.
Yeah, he checked another box off. You're right. He checked another box off last week with that one. Because that was something he hasn't really done yet, and we hadn't seen it done. And now can he win the big game in the playoff? That's the next box he's got to mark off here. But yeah, that was a good one, especially after the way the Bills game ended. And the Bills kind of flustered them in the second half with a couple of blitz packages they sent at him. So that was big for May to get that big win. And he needed that. He needed that one after the Bills lost last week, because it wasn't obviously all on him, but it was disappointing to blow that lead and to have the opportunity to go back and win that football game. And they didn't come through. So definitely a huge one for Drake May to kind of show that he's kind of getting up there as a top echelon or top threshold of NFL quarterbacks. And if they get this week too, he'll go undefeated this year on the road, or in the regular season. Obviously, they might have to go on the road in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think they're going to go undefeated on the road. So I think they're going to beat the Jets. So they're going to go 8-0 on the road, which would be really, really good. So yeah, they're in great. They should be able to win the division, and they got a chance to get the 1 seed. Because Denver could win this week, but say that game matters between the Chargers and the Broncos. Jim Harbaugh is 3-0 against the Broncos, so there's a good chance they could wind up at the number 1 seed.
That'd be great. I know they have not played as well at home as they've been on the road, but you would hope with that Foxborough crowd,
They should
that
be. They'll
weather
be
could
fine.
always.
Playoffs, they'll
Yeah.
be fine.
Oh yeah.
I think they'll be fine.
Oh yeah.
They're still 5-3. They're not terrible at home. They're 5-3.
No.
They lost the tough. They were up 21-0 to the Bills at home. So it's still a
Yeah.
really good crowd. It's still a really good crowd. No, I think they'd be fine if they were at home.
Yeah. No, I think they would be. It's just it is weird that they haven't played as well at home as they have on the road. But and also that Foxborough weather in January could play, could be a factor. We've seen it before and it could play a factor again. So you hope so. Yeah, to get home field advantage would be awesome, especially with your quarterback and Drake May that is going on his first playoff run here. You like it to be in your own stadium and not having to worry about the silent counts or stuff like that. So yeah, to have home field would be great, and especially with like a Bo Nix that's new to the playoffs. Having to come here and then even like Trevor Lawrence, I know he's played in the playoffs before, but make him come up here and in like a Justin Herbert or a Josh Allen, or to get the rubber match, have Josh Allen have to come up here. So, be huge to get to be the number one seed.
It would definitely would be. It definitely would be for the Patriots. Yeah, it would be huge for them to get that. Absolutely, without question. So now we'll move on to the NFC South race between the Panthers and the Bucks, and we'll start with the Bucks, who head to Miami to face the Dolphins. And the Tampa Bay has just not been playing well. I think a reason for it I know their defense hasn't played well. We saw that in the Thursday night game against against the Falcons.
Falcons.
But losing 3 straight to your teams and to the teams in the division in a division that we thought midway through the season they'd have locked up. But Baker Mayfield he's just ever since that that Buffalo game, Mayfield's just been very up and down. He just hasn't played that well. And I think he'll manage the game this week and they'll win just because Miami started Quinn Ewers. And I feel like that's a team that should fire Mike McDaniels because their defense played terribly on Sunday against the Bengals. But I think they manage the game, and I do think their defense ends up beating Quinn Ewers. When you got Baker Mayfield against Quinn Ewers with all this on the line, I do think the Bucs going to win the game here and give themselves a shot with the division in Week 18 against the Panthers. I got the Bucs 23-17 over the Panthers. But Justin, can the Dolphins ruin the Bucs season on Sunday?
I don't think so. I got the Bucks here as well, 28-20. The Bucks since the bye are 1-6. They have not covered in 7 straight weeks here. I'm gonna, now that they're, now for most of the year was okay. They could throw the ball. We can't really get the running game going. Now we got the running game going, but the passing game's not there, and I think that's a big part because Baker's not healthy right now.
That's the thing. I don't think Baker's right. I really don't think Baker's right.
Yeah,
he's hurt. He's
hurt.
He got hurt against the Rams, and I think he's just never been the same since.
Yeah, and I totally agree with you. And there was maybe a couple opportunities there where you could have got him some rust and like against Arizona, against the Saints, and maybe against even Atlanta, where you could have rested him in one of those games to just get him healthy. But yeah, so I'm gonna trust that this running game gets it going again this week, and they have a big game. And Quinn Ewers makes a couple mistakes here, and I think the Tampa Bay does find a way to stay alive and battle it out in Week 18 against Panthers or against the Panthers.
Yeah, I think they do. I just don't think Quinn Ewers. If Tua was playing, I might think the Dolphins. Tua hasn't played well this year either. I'd say the Dolphins might be able to pull an upset, but yeah, not with Quinn Ewers. Not with Quinn Ewers. And the way the defense played for the Dolphins last week, they were terrible. So yeah, I'm going to go with I'm going Bucks here to keep their season alive and give themselves a chance to play for the division in Week 18. And then moving on to a matchup in Carolina between the Panthers and the Seahawks. And I think this is a close competitive game, and I'm going to take the team with the better roster here. I think that Walker's going to be able to run the ball. I think Sam Darnold throws a couple touchdown passes. And I think the defense forces the turnover or 2 from Bryce Young. I think it's close and competitive, but I'm going Seattle here, 28-20 over the Panthers. But Justin, can Bryce Young get the Panthers closer to winning an NFC South title?
No, I got Seattle here too, 24-21. I do think Carolina will keep it close as well. But I think Sam Darnold plays pretty well this week. They got the couple extra days here coming off Thursday night. Maybe a little slow start after that big overtime win. but I do think Sam Darnold plays well. I think that defensive line of Seattle gets after Bryce Young and it forces them to make a turnover too. I think Carolina's defense does put some pressure on Darnold. Um, and the defense kind of helps them keep them in the game here. But I think Seattle's defense is the difference. I think they make a big stop late, and I do have the Seahawks knocking off Carolina this week.
Yeah, it should be a competitive game. But yeah, Seattle last week had a great win over the Rams. A great come from behind win, down 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. Great come from behind win against the Rams, and Sam Darnold proved why he's a good quarterback. He proved it last week. Proved why he was a good quarterback. So Seattle's got they want to get the number 1 seed. They got to win 2 tough games on the road. It starts this week in Carolina, and they got to win it in San Francisco at San Francisco next week, in Santa Clara next week against the 49ers. So I think it's a close competitive game, and I'm going to go Seahawks here 28-20 over the Panthers. Now, the Rams trying to keep pace with the Seahawks. They play the Monday night game against the Falcons, and I don't think they're going to have a problem in this game. I think the Stafford will throw a couple touchdowns. They'll be able to run the football. I mean, Kirk Cousins will move the ball, but I think they'll be kicking field goals, not scoring touchdowns. That's why I got the Rams here. I got the Rams 31-16 over the Falcons. Got the Rams winning this game, going to 12-4, keeping pace with the Seahawks. But Justin, can the Falcons pull off a major upset and really hurt the Rams' chances to win the NFC West?
No, I got LA here too, 30-20. I or 31-16. I think in this one, Matthew Stafford plays pretty well. I think Puka's got another big game on the turf inside in the dome. I think Matthew Stafford plays really well. I think they throw for over 300 yards. I think the running game gets going as well. I think they do whatever they want against that defense. I do think Cousins makes some plays here, keeps them in it for like a half. But I think LA's defense second half is going to make a couple of key stops, and I do think LA is going to win here by a couple scores.
Yeah, I could see LA. I could see the Rams winning by a couple touchdowns. Now we will move on to the game with the 2 worst teams in the league, and that's between the Giants and the Raiders. And this is going to be a sloppy game between these 2 teams. Before we talk about the game, we got to talk about which team needs to lose this game more. And I'm going to say the Raiders because they need a quarterback. And it's pretty obvious Fernando Mendoza's the top guy. So if they could just get the number 1 pick and get Fernando Mendoza, they wouldn't have to give up any assets for it. So I would say the Raiders. Now, the Giants, it would be beneficial for them to lose too because you get that number 1 pick and probably the Jets or Raiders probably trade up and you trade down and you get an additional first-round pick in the 2027 draft. So you'd have 2 first-round picks in 2027. And so, and probably maybe an extra first-round pick in this draft, in this draft. So, or maybe an extra second-round pick in this draft. So the Giants could get a haul for the number 1 pick for the number 1 pick. And if the Raiders lose, they would probably get Fernando Mendoza. But I would say, because it's a quarterback league, I would say the Raiders need to lose this game more than the Giants.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think the Raiders need to lose this game more than the Giants. Because I think for the Giants too, because you have Dart, and I know we're going to get to that. But you also want to see him put up yard. You want to see him in the offense play well against this Raiders defense. Where the Raiders, there's not much to hang your hat on. Like you have Browers and Crosby and Gente had a pretty good week, and you hope that they could build it off of the line and you have a stud running back behind him. But yeah, I think the Raiders. So the Raiders definitely need to lose it. From the Raiders too, if I get to the moment I'll pick, we're about to get with the Giants. I wouldn't draft Mendoza. I trade back and go get either Gosby, the offensive tackle from Texas, or Francis Manungu from Miami, the other offensive tackle. They need help there. It's not a great draft either. Like there's not a lot of high end talent. And I'll get to that in a second when we talk about the Giants and if Giants should take Mendoza number 1.
I do think though. I don't think it should trade back. I think it should take the quarterback. I think you have to take the quarterback. And you talked about the Giants with Dart, and you hit the nail on the head. You don't want to see Dart struggle. You want to see Dart play well. So that's I know a lot of Giant fans want losses, but you also don't want to see what you saw last week from Jackson Dart. You don't want to see that. You don't want to see him throw for 33 yards. I know Brian Flores is one of the top defensive coordinators in football, but you don't want to see you don't want to see him throw for 33 yards in a game. You just don't want to see that. Or the game plan, which wasn't good either, which they tried to run the ball and they pretty much took the ball out of his hands. So you want to see Dart play well. You want to see Carter play well. And outside of the offside that took away a touchdown last week, he did play pretty well. Has been playing better lately, but yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely the Raiders. If you ask the question, who needs to lose it more? It's definitely the Raiders because they need the quarterback. And I think if the Raiders lose this game and get the number one pick, I think they're going to take Fernando Mendoza with the top pick in the draft. But moving on to the Giants, what should they do? Because right now they currently have the number one pick in the draft. What should the Giants do if they get the number one pick in the draft? And there's talk out there where the Giants should trade Jackson Dart and draft Fernando Mendoza, which I think is absolutely ridiculous because this year Jackson Dart lost his best receiver the first game he played, Malik Neighbors, lost Cam Scatteraboo in Philadelphia, so he lost his two best offensive weapons. Brian Daboll got fired, which for the overall team I feel like it needed to happen, but it really hasn't helped the team because they have lost every game, even though Daboll should have been fired. Should be fine. It should have been fired, but it hasn't helped the team overall because Dart's numbers have went down since Kafkas became the head coach because Kafkas had to have two jobs and Dart now has a new play caller. So he's had two different play callers, Michael Kafka and Tim Kelly. So, but with everything happening around Dart this year, there's no way the Giants should move off him. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. They should not move off him and take Mendoza. I think if they get that pick, you trade down with the Raiders or the Jets, and you get additional picks. You get a haul. If the Giants get the number one pick, there's no way they should take Fernando Mendoza and move on from Jackson Dart.
No, and I agree because I wouldn't take Mendoza number one because I don't think he's a generational quarterback, and that's what you want number one overall pick. Look, I don't want to pile on the guy. I do like him. I think he'd be like a late first rounder in most years. But he didn't even throw for 3,000 yards this year. Usually you want your first overall pick to throw for like 4,000. He didn't even do that this year. And I felt like in games against like Penn State, he wasn't great until that final drive. That Ohio State game, I know he made a couple plays, but like he wasn't great either. And against Iowa, like I didn't think he played fantastic. They run a ton of RPO stuff, which I don't like. I think you're gonna need I think he's gonna have I think he's more of a system quarterback more than I think he can just branch off and kind of run a different NFL scheme and have like huge success. So I like the kid. I just don't think I just don't think it'd be a giant mistake whoever drafts him number one. I don't think you're getting generational talent, and that's what you want at number one overall. And I don't think that's him.
Yeah, you said it there. Yeah, you need a generational talent, and it might end up. It might not be. It probably won't be. We'll see if it's him. But you're not a fan. You're not. We know that. We know Justin is not a fan of Mendoza. We know he's not the biggest fan of Mendoza. But we'll see what ends up happening. But for the game, I think honestly, with the way Genti played last week, I think he runs the ball for over 100 yards. I don't think the Raiders score a lot of touchdowns, but they kick field goals. I think Dart continues to struggle, and I think the Raiders pull it out. I think they win it 19-17. But Justin, who you got?
I would take your Giants 23-21. I could see because the Raiders always find ways to ruin their draft pick by winning these games late in the year when they should be losing them. That's what the Raiders always do here. But I think Jackson Dart plays well enough here. I do think the Giants running game gets going here. I think the Giants pass rush gets after Geno Smith, and it's a rough day for him. I think he caused a couple of turnovers. So I'm going to take the Giants and win a close one here, 23-20. And I think Steve's having
I'm back. So we'll move on to a matchup in the NFC East between the Cowboys and the Commanders. And there's a good chance Josh Johnson will start for the Commanders. Dak will be starting for the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys score. This is going to be the first time against the Commanders to score a bunch of points. And I do think Josh Johnson moves the ball against the Cowboys defense too. But you're not taking Josh Johnson against Dak Prescott, and that's why I got the Cowboys sweeping the Commanders, beating the Commanders 34-24. But Justin, can Josh Johnson pull off an upset win against their division rival?
I don't think so. I got the Cowboys 31-24. I can't believe Josh Johnson's still around the league. 18 years, I think it is now for him. He's been around the block, and I think he plays decent in this one. I do think they moved the ball against the Dallas defense that is pitiful, but I also think Dak has another huge game. Yeah, you mentioned they put up 44. couple of months ago against Dallas or against Washington. I think Dak Prescott has another great game, and I think that offense does whatever they want. And another test of who wants to be there on Christmas Day. But I just Washington's defense is even worse than Dallas. So and Dak Prescott's obviously the much better quarterback than Josh Johnson. So I'm going to take the better quarterback in this one, in Dak and the Cowboys.
All righty, we got another meaningless game in Tennessee, but we got two young quarterbacks with Tyler Shuck and Cam Ward. Tyler Shuck has actually played pretty well recently. Cam Ward won a game last week for the Titans against the Chiefs. So I think this game is, close and competitive, but I'm going to take the team that's playing better. Kellen Moore's done a nice job there with the Saints. So I'm going to go with the Saints here, 20-14 over the Titans. Justin, who you got?
Yeah, I got the Saints as well, 18-15. Yeah, Shucks played pretty well, and even Cam Ward off the bye here. In his last 6 games since the bye, he's completing 63% of his passes, 8 touchdowns, 1 INT. So me is starting to feel good about Cam Ward and his performances the last couple of weeks. And if you get the right coach in there and a couple more weapons for him, you feel good about the future. But in this week, I think the Saints pull it out and they win a low scoring close game here.
All righty, so we'll wrap up talking about the Cardinals and the Bengals, and I just think Joe Burrow is going to be too much for the Cardinals defense. He has another big week, him and Jamar Chase. Brissett, he'll make plays, but also make mistakes. I got the Bengals going to 6-10, Cards going to
I think we
Justin, who you got? Who do you got?
I got Cincinnati here as well, 31-21. I think Joe Burrow and that offense continues to put up a lot of points this week. I think Jamar Chase has a big one, and I didn't think Jacoby Set wasn't great last week. I think he plays a little bit better this week. I think Trey McBride has a huge game in this one, and I got Cincinnati win by double digits.
All righty, so we'll wrap up the show talking about some NBA on Christmas Day, and that will start with the Cavs and the Knicks. And the big story here is are the Cavs title contenders at 15-14? I'm going to still say they are because they won. They did win.
Yeah, we lost you there.
You're the Cavs title.
You're back now. Yeah,
you're the Cavs title contenders.
Yeah, I still have them there. I think with the Eastern Conference, the Pistons and Knicks are good. We know the Celtics are banged up. I don't think there's a chance that Tatum plays this year, but you never know. I just think in the East, if it's not a ton of contenders, that when this team gets fully healthy again, I think this is a team that's going to be, I know they've had their issues in the postseason the last couple of years, but I do think they have the talent to contend in the Eastern Conference. I know the defense too this year hasn't felt like it's lived up the last couple of years as well here, but yeah, I'd still put Cleveland up there just because there's just not a lot of great teams in the Eastern Conference. So, or a lot of unproven teams, I should say, in the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, a lot of unproven. Detroit's been playing really well, though. Detroit's been playing well, but yeah, a lot of unproven teams. Orlando's an unproven team. The Cavs. So I do think they're title contenders. In the West, I would say no, but I do think they're title contenders in the East. But I do think the Knicks pull it out. I think the Knicks do pull it out against the Cavs on Christmas Day.
Yeah, I like the Knicks here as well at home. I think Jalen Brunson plays pretty well. I like the Knicks are a fun team to watch, and they push the ball up and down the floor, and Jalen Brunson, I think, has got a big day.
Yeah, I think so too. I agree. I think the Knicks pull it out over the Cavs. Now Spurs play the Thunder, and really the question for the Spurs are: we all know that.
Yeah, I'm with you there with the Spurs as well here. I do think they're right there with the Nuggets, and I keep going back and forth, but I'm gonna say the Spurs because they're a little bit younger. Are the biggest threat to them.
Wow.
I love their guard play with Fox and then and then they got Fox. They obviously have Castle, who's not a great. He won't do a ton offensively, but he's a great perimeter. He's a great defender, and he can shut down your top guy. And Devin Vassal's a really good kind of guard who could also play the three as well for him. And Harrison Barnes is a good kind of knockdown shooter. Won't do a ton, but kind of knows his role. And he gets you 10 to 15 a night, which could be huge in the postseason. And then obviously Victor Wembanyama and everything he could do. I really love the Spurs teams. I love the youth that they have, and I think they could be a dangerous threat to the OKC. And went back and forth between them and Denver, but I really like the youth of San Antonio.
I'm going to still go Denver, even though I really like San Antonio. I'm going to go Denver. I still think because they got the best player in the sport. I'm still going to go Denver as the biggest threat. But the Spurs got something good going with Wemby, with Castle, with Fox. They got something really, really good going in San Antonio. Now we got the 5:00 game between the Mavs and the Warriors, and the big question is which team has a better chance to make the playoffs, the Mavs or the Warriors? And I'm going to go with the Warriors just because of the play of Steph Curry. Even though the Warriors really don't have that third guy, and you saw the issue between Steve Kerr and Draymond Green, it is time to get Draymond Green out of there. There's just been way too many issues these last couple of years with them. So they chose him over Jordan Poole. Which, I know Jordan Poole doesn't play well, but maybe that would have been the better option if he stayed in that Golden State system and didn't go to Washington. So yeah, I'm gonna go with the Warriors, who having the better chance to make the playoffs. Because the problem with the Mavs is I know they got Cooper Flag, but they traded a top 4 player in the sport, and that's why they're under 500, and that's why Nico Erickson is fired. So I'm definitely gonna go Warriors here.
Yeah, I'm going Warriors as well. The Dallas is an aging team. I know you got AD, no Kyrie this year, and Klay Thompson just a shell of himself. I know he's shooting the ball decent, but he's just a total shell of himself. And yeah, as long as Curry's still out there, I have to take that Warriors team. They got Jimmy Butler as well. You mentioned it; they're missing that third guy, but I don't think that's going to matter. And yeah, Draymond's been an issue for a while. Kings tried to take him away a couple years ago when this last contract, which that would have Sacramento that would have gone over well with Draymond in that locker room. But so I know the Warriors do need another big, but I do like this Golden State team better than I do Dallas. I know Cooper Flag's been pretty good here as a rookie, but I just aging. You just never know with AD and Klay Thompson with their health.
Exactly. So Rockets and Lakers. That's the 8:00 game on ABC on Christmas night. Who's got a better chance to make a run in the playoffs? I'm going Lakers because I like Luka. And the Lakers have won games without LeBron, so I'm going to go Lakers because Luka's the best player on the floor. I know Şengün's improved for the Rockets, but can you really define who the Rockets' best player is? Is it Şengün? Is it Durant? You know the Lakers' best players.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm going Rockets. I think we see so having some issues connecting here. I'm gonna take the Rockets. I'm gonna take the Rockets over the Lakers. LeBron's getting up there in age. I know Luka's been awesome, but yeah, I know the Rockets. I agree you don't know who their best player is, but I think they have a really good kind of couple guys you go to. Şengün's a really good big guy. Jabari Smith's a good offensive option as well, and is an unbelievable paint defender. You still got KD there. Reach Jeffords having a pretty nice year as well. Ahmed Thompson's another guy who's a good scorer and can defend. So I like the versatility of Rockets. I think they're a better defensive team too than the Lakers. And I do think they have enough shooting where the Lakers, LeBron's getting up there in age. Luka's obviously one of the top players in the sport here. Aiden's it's still a good center. Can get you 15 to 10 a night. But I like the Rockets. I think they have a little bit more than the other Lakers, and I think they bring a little bit more on the defensive end, which I like.
All righty, we got the T-Wolves and the Nuggets to wrap it up. And which team has a better chance to make a run? And I kind of answered the question earlier. It's the Nuggets because of Jokic, but I do like Ant-Man. Ant-Man he had a huge game against that game-winning shot against the Thunder last Friday night, but I got to go Nuggets because they've won a championship and they got the best player in the sport.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got to go Nuggets. Jokic is the best player in the sport. I think the Nuggets have more depth this year, and Edwards and that Timberwolves team's been close the last couple of years, but there's always that one game of series where Anthony Edwards kind of takes the night off and you don't get his best effort, and that can come back to bite you at times as well. So, I don't go Bears as a solid kind of paint defender as well. DiVincenzo's been good, good piece as well. And, McDaniel's a good defender, but it's, Jokic's still the best player in sport, and it's hard to pick against him.
It definitely is. It absolutely is very, very hard to pick against Nikola Jokic. That's going to wrap up this edition of Sports Talk with R&J. For Justin D'Onofrio, I'm Steve Risser. We will be back next Tuesday previewing the final week of the NFL season, Week 18 of the NFL season, and previewing the quarterfinals of the college football playoffs. So we'll be back talking college football next week. I hope everybody, on behalf of me and Justin, has a great Christmas and a happy holiday, and we will talk to you on Tuesday.